This video is how to check your bearing unit for play and condition, and also your blade carrier assembly for condition. First thing we're going to do is check that bearing unit for play, so we can get hold of the blade carrier and give it a wiggle. You can have a very faint rattle there, but this blade carrier is moving around more than you'd like it to, and it will start affecting the balance and start creating vibrations. So this movement can either be the bearing's getting tired or the bearing into housing is getting loose. So sometimes you can pull them apart and put some retaining compound on the bearing into the housing and lock it all back up tight again. We're going to pull that bearing out. That needs looking at one way or another. The other thing to look at when you're under here is stuff wrapped around on top of the blade hub, up in this gap up here. If there's anything in there, you want to be able to remove that with a set of pliers as best as you can, or if it's really wrapped in, you'll have to pull the blade carrier off and the hub off to get that out. Other things to look at is the condition of your tips of your blade carriers. See, this one here is quite worn through here compared to the other side, which is good. No wear at all on that side. You can swap these blade carriers from side to side to the other side of the mower and get a bit more wear out of the other end. The other thing to look at is the condition of the heads of your blade bolts underneath here. If they're getting worn on one side, getting quite thin, you can undo those bolts, spin them around half a turn and put them back on and wear the other side. Right, so we're going to start taking this blade carrier off. What you need to do first is get them with a little screwdriver. You've got 5 cap screws under here. You want to be able to clean all the dirt out of them. I've already done this, so you can get an Allen key in. And you'll also note that there's 2 threaded holes there and there in between the bolts. That's for extracting the taper lock. You want to run a 6mm bottom tap through those holes to make sure they're nice and clean before you start. I've already done that process. So first thing I'm going to do is loosen off your centre retainer. And then loosen off your 4 smaller cap screws. These can get quite tight. You want to be very careful undoing them. You don't want to snap these off. So what we're going to do is put 2 of those cap screws back in the threaded holes, the ones we cleaned out with the tap. Now we want to put a bit of a tweak on these bolts. We want to try to keep the pressure even from side to side. Now you have to be very careful when you're doing this, and once these blade carriers have been on for a long time, these can get very tight to break. So you just want to be very gentle. Occasionally, if you get an appropriate punch, you can actually punch the shaft once you've got a bit of pressure on them, and it helps to crack them free. And also they will drag. It takes a bit of drag in them down here if you've got too much dirt around. You want to make sure that's nice and clean around that face. This one here's not too bad to crack free. This one's coming loose. Keep an even pressure on both sides. If you find you run out of room on your bolts, you just need to get some longer 6mm bolts to get it to wind out completely. So I've got 2 longer bolts here. They have to be full thread bolts to be able to get the travel. Bolt I found's got a bit of damage to it. There's another one.
This one seems to be a bit tight.